Welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. So what do Santa Barbara, Call Tracking and Analytics, Run DMC and LL Cool J, FUBU, and two sharks, one of Shark Tank fame and the other of marketing podcast fame, have in common? That's right, it was Invoca Summit, one of my favorite conferences to attend for a lot of reasons. And I speak at a lot of conferences, and like a lot of technology company conferences, there's just a little more collaboration, partnership, and thought leadership, at least in this case with the technology, that can really help with some of your lead gen efforts. So during the week of the show, I caught up with the master host, Gregg Johnson, CEO of Invoca, Joel Citron, Vice President of Advertising Technologies at AI Media Group, AC Evans, CEO of Drips, Todd Stearn, CEO of Aragon Advertising, and David Walsh, President of Visiqua. And on this episode, we'll discuss the summit itself, Damon John's amazing keynote, beautiful Santa Barbara, where some would like to see the call intelligence space go next, going vegan or vegetarian, lemon-infused water, my love for swimming with sharks, and a lot more. So let's tune in to 5 Invoca Summit attendees with a shark podcasting live at the conference on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. All right, so let's hear first from Gregg Johnson, CEO of Invoca. All right, Gregg, welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. You're one of the OG guests going back to episode 10 of this show. So another successful year at Invoca and another amazingly successful Invoca Summit. First of all, Santa Barbara at this time of the year in the fall does not suck. Having a hotel by the beach doesn't hurt either. But, what was your takeaway as a CEO of Invoca and a ringleader of such a tremendous event?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thanks to you and AI Media and all the other folks that participated in the event. I think for me, it was really interesting to hear from a variety of different customers and partners, first around a lot of the work that they're doing around paid media optimization. But the thing that gets me really excited, especially coming from a background in CRM at Salesforce, is seeing marketers take this broader role around the buying experience and collaborating with teams outside of marketing to really make sure they're doing everything they can to make it easy for potential customers to buy from their brand and to get to know them. So, whether it was Noah Brooks from University Hospitals or some of the other speakers, it was fun for me just to hear about the reach of Invoca data going beyond marketing and starting to influence and affect the broader customer experience across different teams.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, a lot of players in the software space, especially in the tech space, have conferences with Dreamforce and IBM and everybody else. But what are you thinking about when putting one together like this to make yours better and different and unique? And, how does that all tie into your strategy as a CEO to be the leader in the call intelligence space?
Well, it's very hard, if not impossible, to compete with events from Salesforce and Adobe when you're a relatively small software company. And I think for us, we try to think about how we can make our events distinct and unique with as many personal touches as we can that, frankly, become harder as you get to be a bigger organization. Yeah. So, I spoke to a lot of customers who, or prospective customers who have not been to Invoca Summit before. And, they had folks from Invoca who introduced them to other customers or other people on day one or day two so that they had, folks they could connect with over the course of the week. For one of the benefits of being a smaller event is the opportunity for us to do activities in the Santa Barbara area on Thursday. Right. So we had golf, we had, a food and wine tour. We took some people surfing, which was the first this year. And we had, one woman who's actually a Salesforce administrator from First Data. She'd never been surfing before. And at the end of the couple hours we spent in the water, she was just super excited. And she's like, Dreamforce is amazing, but, going surfing in the ocean for the first time in California was something I could only do an event like this. So for us, it's about how we provide that content that's really, really relevant from a professional point of view, and then try to do some things with personal touches that you just can't really do when you're running an event of 5,000, 10,000, much like 50,000 or 100,000 people.
No, and I was telling somebody as well, I think one of the differences with your event, there are a lot of the bigger events that become too sales splashy and, just too heavy of a sales footprint on a conference. And everybody I spoke with did not feel like it was handled that way. But I would like to encourage you possibly next year to let me take people scuba diving. So you're
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you can take them on. Maybe we can have shark diving led by the
100%.
shark, and they can go see some great whites.
Yeah, you got the Channel Islands right off of Santa Barbara coast, not too far. So I'm
Yeah,
all in for that. We'll
I
put
think I think the other thing for me is the nice thing about a conference of our size. There are lots of interesting new faces, but they're also, like, I hate to call them, old regulars, but they're regulars like you. And I know you talked to AC Evans from
yeah,
Grips. They were a sponsor. And I think, Thursday, Jamie Sutton from Visiqua got to go
yeah.
surfing with us, and I got to sit out on my back patio with a group of people, including Kathy Sharp from CTA Media, and have glass of wine last night. So you meet new people, but it's still small enough that there are some old regulars that you look forward to seeing at these types of events. And I'm a nostalgic guy, and so for me, it's always nice to see some of those faces that have come around from the past.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I talked to several people that it was also like me, their third year in a row, and there are very few conferences that I forward to going to over and over and over. And it's, consensus across the board that this is one of the ones where you learn and become really inspired. So just outside just the conference, you look at the call intelligence space and where you play and where all of the other competitors play. Where would you like to see this industry and your platform progress to the next level? What's your North Star with the technology that will continue, you look to help continue evolve?
Yeah, there are obviously all these tremendous advancements in technology and AI. And, for example, we talked this week about this product called Signal Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of Signal Discovery is that marketers don't really have great visibility into what types of conversations are happening in the contact center. They hope and expect that some of those conversations are driving sales and revenue, but they don't really have an idea of what else is going on. And the whole goal of this product is to use artificial intelligence to surface what types of things are being discussed and help marketers get insight into that. But ultimately, I think our vision is how do we take technology and help brands deliver that personal touch and that human touch at scale in today's world. And obviously, consumers want to do stuff in digital, and digital self-service is tremendously important. But there are particular points in the customer journey where having expert advice, having that reassurance that helps give consumers confidence they're buying the right product when it comes to things like, healthcare or insurance or getting a mortgage to buy their first house. For us, it's really about how do we leverage technology to help brands put the best human face on the customer experience and still get all the data and measurability that they've traditionally gotten through digital, so that they can offer consumers the choice, of interacting the way they want. So that for us is really exciting. And I think that's why this week with Signal Discovery, we were really looking forward to engaging in conversations with customers around how technology can help them drive that human relationship, but have the data and the measurability that they've traditionally had in digital interactions as well.
Agreed. Well, so the big draw, if you will, of the speakers listed, I know it was the one that everybody gravitated towards and made them come to the event, was the guy known as the Shark. And obviously, I was a little surprised to find that you and the Invoca team meant Damon John and not me. I mean, Gregg, come on. I actually swim with them on a regular basis, and I don't I'm a thousandaire, so I'm right there with him. Just he's got a couple extra zeros, but I have
Just
tattoos of sharks, and I had on my some of my favorite shark shoes. So seriously, it was an amazing keynote. I don't know anybody who wasn't blown away by that. Damon John is a remarkable speaker. Has an amazing story, but also has just told a story that could fit any kind of conference. And then he also talks about customer experience and a little bit about software and call intelligence. But what made you pursue him? And now that you've set that bar that high with what is next year's keynote? I mean, you're pretty much left with what, the Pope, Tony Robbins, or Peyton Manning, because you might have to yell Omaha to get the next one. So
exactly. No, we should have branded this whole thing Shark Week. Having you out and having him out. He was amazing. I must confess, I've never watched a lot of Shark Tank, and so I'd seen video clips of Damon speaking, And, our team came up with the idea and really was interested in having somebody who could talk about, an entrepreneurial journey and innovation in business. And, based on both the customer response when we announced it, as well as doing more of my research before the conference, my expectations were pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my, did he ever surpass the expectations? He was just amazing. I mean, also, as I was talking about earlier, just what a great human being. We spent 15 or 20 minutes backstage talking before the event started, and we were talking about his wife and his daughter and his, growing up and the things that he'd done. And I was just really impressed with that and his commitment and the time he spends educating people on, business and financial literacy and helping make sure that everybody has the same opportunities that he does. And in terms of a performance, when we first talked to him, we expected his talk to run about 50 or 60 minutes. When we spoke to his team 2 weeks ago, they said he normally likes to take 75. And I think he spoke for 85 or 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And everybody that I talked to just said they were on the edge of their seat
Yeah.
the entire time. And the hip hop music from the 90s and the stories about LL Cool J and, brought back some memories from the early days for me. And I don't know how we're going to top that next year, to be honest with you. If you've got ideas, send them my way, because I was really blown away.
Agreed. Well, Gregg, I didn't get to ask you this back on episode 10, but I will now. So what is your favorite kind of shark and why?
I think I like nurse sharks. You know why, Kenneth?
Because they're the nice catfish-looking sharks that when they bite, they don't really leave a mark.
Exactly, because when I'm surfing in California, I don't have to worry about one of them coming up from underneath me and taking care of me. It was funny when we were introducing Damon John, we had a picture of a surfer with a fin in the water near it, and I surf enough to know it was actually a dolphin, not a shark. But we were joking around about it in rehearsals. We didn't end up using it, but I said I was going to joke around with the crowd. You know the difference between seeing the fin of a dolphin and the fin of a shark when you're surfing? You never see the fin of the shark.
Yeah.
The fin of the dolphin you see, and you have that moment of terror followed by a moment of joy and excitement that you've got dolphins swimming around you while you're out in the break surfing. But the problem with sharks is you never see the fin. So I'm going to say my favorite shark is the nurse shark, because I never have to worry about those when I'm in the water.
Good point. All right, Gregg, are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
Oh, sure. I don't know if they're going to match what my wife asks me when I get home tonight, but let's see if you can beat it.
All right, number 1, a conference in Santa Barbara or a conference in New York?
This isn't just me being self-promoting. I'd say conference in Santa Barbara because...
nobody's given a different answer either. Everybody agrees with Santa Barbara.
I love New York. I'm actually headed to New York in 2 weeks for my anniversary with my wife, and we're both incredibly excited. I think it's because I have so many other excuses to be in New York.
Yeah.
And when I was at Salesforce, we did connections in a few other events in New York. And, the city's just so huge. The events are so huge. It almost doesn't even feel like an event because it's so overwhelming. And I think, whether you're talking about our event in Santa Barbara or other events that are in smaller, more regional cities, they just have a little bit more of a distinct feel to them. So, if you ask me for a weekend in New York or a weekend in Santa Barbara, I'd take New York. But if you ask me for an event, I'd take Santa Barbara.
Agreed. All right, number 2, and this is a very California question. Vegan or vegetarian?
I think I'd have to go vegetarian because, I'm nowhere near either of those two options.
Yeah, same
so
here.
I will take whatever is broader and gives me access to more variety.
Give me a dolphin, grill it, and wrap it in bacon, and I'm good. So, sorry, PETA. Number 3, another California question based on some of the beverage offerings I saw during the week. Lemonade or lemon-infused water?
For me, lemonade for sure. I have a massive sweet tooth, so that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I'd probably up you want to make it non or Palmer, but between those two, I definitely take the flavor of the lemonade.
Well, that just shows your Georgia in you. So,
exactly.
Number 4, modeled attribution or last click?
Oh, for sure, modeled attribution. We're all about marketing sophistication. So it's it's good. It's good with last click to help people get started. But what gets us really excited at Invoca is when folks are looking at, overall marketing modeling mix, multi-touch attribution. Those are the customers that really push the boundaries of our technology and our thinking. So we love working with folks like that.
All right, number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Oh, biscuits. Biscuits with gravy, no questions asked.
Good man. All right, Gregg, I hope to see you next year at next year's Invoca Summit. Great job again to you and the team, and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for being on another episode of A Shark's Perspective.
No, thank you for coming out to visit us, and we were excited that you could participate in the informal version of Shark Week in Santa Barbara, and look forward to doing it again next year.
Next up is Joel Citron, Vice President of Advertising Technologies at AI Media Group. So, Joel, what did you think about the summit this year at Invoca?
I thought it was amazing. I was not expecting what I saw, and I was really pleasantly surprised.
What were you expecting?
I've been to many different events and summits, and they tend to be very pushy and salesy. And
yeah, exactly.
This was more of something. I use Invoca, and the people that were there use Invoca were thinking very strongly about using the platform, and it really talked shop. It was much more different than going to a place where you have vendors just driving you crazy trying to buy their services. Because I already bought the service,
yeah.
And the way it was run was really a lot like the Invoca platform, really tight and well put together. It was I was every session I went to was informative. Definitely felt that I was good use of my time, and I learned a lot.
Well, you've seen this over time. I know I have from speaking with a lot of marketers. I know a lot of them still don't understand the value out of call intelligence type platforms. What's the value that you see really the most in using them today?
Well, I think that at the end of the day, you want to have attribution. You want to know what your return on investment is on your marketing spend. You also want to know how your leads are doing. It is very important because you may have leads coming in from the web. You may have leads coming in off an email, but a lot of people are just going to pick up the phone and call. And if you don't know where that phone call came from, and on top of that, if you don't know, what's happening on that call, you're not really going to be able to go and really be actionable on that information. You want to know what your ROI is, and calls are a part of it. And having the right partner for call tracking and call intelligence is important, because there's two things you need to have. One, you need to know where this call came from, so that way you could know I want to push my advertising dollars towards that. But I also need to know what went on the call. I need to be able to, I'm going to use one of Invoca's terms, use signals that happen on the call to be able to, in real time, optimize. Because if I'm waiting, 3 weeks to analyze my calls because I have someone listening to them, and I flag them and I say, okay, these were the keywords, ads, and placements that really did well for me for these calls, I'm already behind the curve. So from my perspective, and just, I guess in my DNA from working with the AI Media Group, with real-time optimizations, Invoca is a really great fit, because they're able to tell me where the call came from, tell me some information about the call using their signals and signal AI, and let me optimize it to it in real time. So, good stuff.
Agreed. So you were part of a panel of the session this year, Get More Out of Call Analytics by Involving Your Agency. Kind of give a brief overview on what the gist of that session was. I was lucky enough to attend it and also heckle you a little bit, but talk a little bit about the session itself and what you helped convey to the audience.
I think the main thing we're trying to convey to the audience was how important it is to set your goals and know what your KPIs are before you launch a campaign, know what your reporting requirements are from beginning, and then really work well together, have information sharing between yourself and the agency who's putting together everything for you. One of the things that you're able to leverage when you have an agency is we have more scale. So we're able to go and do things that you may not have thought about. So if you're a client and you're saying, oh, God, I have 300 branches, how am I going to set up call tracking for it? Let's sit down and have a chat, and we may have the resources to put something together for you. And I think that was really, what we accomplished for our client, and allowed them really to get into the digital marketing sphere, which they weren't in before, because of certain limitations that they had. but using Invoca and our knowledge base as well, we were able to really get them put together for them.
So when you attend a conference, a lot of times it's networking, but specifically when you're attending this kind of conference put on by the software company itself, what did you get out of it? What did you look to get out of it when you were there?
So, yeah, so Kenneth, one of the things that I did get out of it was that I've had some issues crop up, some little bugs or questions of how to implement things, and I was like, I'm going to the summit next week. I'm just going to ask them.
Yeah.
And I was amazed to say that they were able to answer those questions. The Invoca team is super knowledgeable of their product. And it wasn't like, we'll get back to you, have to look it up. No, they were able to sit there and we were able to, pull up some use cases where we were running into trouble, and they were just able to say, oh no, this is the way to work on it. This is how, this is how we could put it together. Or actually, Joel, to be honest, I think we need to restructure how we set this up.
Exactly.
But it was really great being able to, it was really, I don't want to say surprising, but I have to say it was surprising how much knowledge the Invoca people had. It wasn't like they know their product. You asked them. I was trying to trick them up a little bit. Hey, can you do this? Yeah, sure. This is how it's done. It was really, it was a really nice experience, because a lot of times, you'll go and you'll set up even phone calls and you try to, level 3 support, and
right.
the answer is, we'll get back to you in a week. I was there in their face. They set up a Genius bar, so we could just go up there and pull up our systems and show our platform and say, this is the issue that I'm having, and have someone right there walk us through it. It was really that Genius bar was a genius move on Invoca's part, and it really added a lot of value.
Yeah, they set up a short bus bar for me, and that was the bar I hung out in. So not just talking about Invoca, or whether it's Invoca or Marchex or CallRail or Dialog Tech or any of them. What's the next thing you'd like to see from call intelligence SaaS platforms like this?
Yeah, I would say, working with other platforms. Before we went with Invoca, we were with another platform, and then we explored quite a few. But the most important thing to us, AI Media Group as a company, was being able to get at the data. We needed a data-driven platform. We needed a platform when a call comes in, I could look at the data behind this call, and I can know what drove it, and I could have metadata attached to it. That was so important, because I can't just have a caller ID anymore. I can't just have, the length and time of the call and knowing the person called from New York City. I need to know a lot more about it. And, having a platform that's able to be extensible and be able to customize it, I think is very important, because not every client and not every customer and not every agency will have the same requirements that they need in terms of their call tracking. Client number 1 may have to track a Omniture ID. Client number 2 may be using the Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and they want to be able to tie all that together. So having the flexibility in a platform to be able to connect to multiple places, because phone calls are just one part of the whole marketing picture, is important.
All right, Joel, what is your favorite kind of shark and why?
I would say the hammerhead.
Okay.
Why? Because when you asked me what my favorite kind of shark is, the first one I thought of was hammerhead, and the fact that it's this creature that exists, its head is just completely shaped differently, and it's unique, is something that's appealing to me.
Good. So are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today?
Sure.
All right. A conference in Santa Barbara or a conference in Manhattan?
Santa Barbara.
Thank you. Yeah, despite commutes and jet lag and everything else, it is well worth the trip.
The fact that it's Santa Barbara and it's nice and the weather is temperate, and I had the most beautiful sunrise, I would say, yesterday morning. Yeah.
All right.
It was worth it.
Another California question: vegan or vegetarian?
Well, I might as well go all in. Vegan.
Yeah, I'm not going with either. Put bacon on my hummus. So.
Yeah, I ended up eating the vegan option at the thing, because I cooked the kosher. But it was okay. You know, it was actually it was not as disgusting as I would have imagined.
Well, here's another one that kind of flows that way. Number 3 is lemonade or lemon infused water.
Lemonade.
All right, number 4, modeled attribution or last click.
The answer's model, but I'm just trying to say, you know, when you model it, you have to be smart about your modeling. I've seen a lot of data models, and if their data model's not right, last click is better. How's that?
You got it. Number 5, and the most important question you're going to be asked today. Much more important than modeled or last click attribution
really?
Is biscuits or cornbread.
Wow. Are they full butter biscuits?
Whatever you, I mean, yeah, whatever you want them to be.
I would have to say, like this. If it's I could say that if you say biscuits versus cornbread, I'd probably say biscuits because it's easier to make a good biscuit. However, in my experience in my life, I've definitely had better cornbread than I've had biscuits.
Good man.
But it was rare. Like that cornbread was really good.
So,
usually it's grainy and dry, and not what it should be.
So Joel, will you be at next year's summit?
I would like to.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Coming at you now is AC Evans, CEO of Drips. So, AC, what did you think about the conference this year? I know I've seen you at 2 or 3 of these, but what did you think of Invoca's Call Intelligence Summit this year?
Great. Invoca Summit is personally my favorite show of the year, and I mean that wholeheartedly. Next to them, maybe Jornaya Summit, any of these summits of these SaaS companies where it's truly partners, clients, and friends. I like it a lot better than the larger shows where there's thousands of people. The content is just pitches at those larger shows. At these smaller summits, I think that the content is very, very informative. The crowd is very collaborative. Invoca specifically, they go out of their way to make it a valuable conference, not from necessarily a direct ROI standpoint, but just from an industry knowledge and insight standpoint. And every year it gets better. This is my 3rd year, I believe.
Yeah. Same here.
The first year I was there, they had you may recall Tim Urban's talk on AI, which blew me away. Made me think of a lot of things very differently, and that was amazing content. And then this year they had Damon John. That might have been the most impressive talk. I can't even call it a talk. I've been referencing it as a performance that I've ever seen, specifically at an industry conference. So yeah, the fact they took over the Ho Hotel this year, I thought was really great. All the branding, all the creative work. There was just a ton of thoughtfulness that went into every little detail of the last few days in Santa Barbara. It was wonderful.
Yeah, the event is amazing. I love the event. I think they put it on in a tremendous place, even though there's a big chunk of them in San Francisco. But like you just said, I've been to some of the other summits that are bigger, but they're pushing more from a sales perspective. This is more about, like you said, partnering, and you've got everybody that's dialed in with how to use the tool. Now, there is obviously some sales aspect of it, but everybody's looking at how to advance use of something that should be a best practice for everybody. It's one of my favorite events as well. And just between the team, the culture, the location, the knowledge, and then I'll admit that I felt like I had gone to church after hearing Damon John speak. And then I brushed off every memory I had of Old School Rap. And just his entire presentation it blew me away. And it's the second time I've seen him, and this was 1,000 times better than the first time. And that inspired me. And I don't know that I've gotten inspired out of a industry type conference before, but I just found it to be simply amazing. So,
well, like you said, I think it's more about the message than the pitch, right? Like Damon was not pitching anything, right?
Exactly.
If anything, he was pitching entrepreneurship and the journey. I don't know if you're in my compliance panel, but that,
yeah,
that's
I
not
remember. Don't you
pitching
remember?
drips. That's just,
Yeah, I asked you a
oh yeah,
question.
you had a question at the end. Yep. Yeah, so we're not, Ross isn't up there pitching Drenai. I'm not up there pitching drips. Marty Collins isn't up there pitching Quinn Street, but we're trying to share and, give back to the industry and talk about compliance and what's coming up in it. And that to me is the spirit of Invoca Summit and other summits like it is information, less transaction, more, make people think, make people consider, and not to force people to buy.
Agreed. Well, as a guy that is a CEO of a company that's heavy in this space, where would you like to see call intelligence go? I mean, I know you're more, SMS and texting arena, if you will, but where would you like to see companies like Invoca and any of the other call intelligence partners really start pushing themselves to move to that next step?
That's a great question. To me, calls and text are the left and the right hand, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think
Good
you
agreed.
can have one without the other. Drips does do calls. We do scheduled calls.
Right.
We do IVRs. We do inbound. When we do the inbound, we transfer them to a more appropriate company like an Invoca to do all the analytics and the routing and whatnot. But I think that is the next step, right? Like, you saw it at the Invoca Summit Shark Tank, right? Garvin got up there. I think he had the second pitch, and the pitch was, look, Invoca has millions of numbers, and those numbers get inbound text messages
Exactly.
every day, right? So, example, 3-day blinds, they have their phone numbers listed on their websites, and people are texting those numbers, no doubt,
Mm-hmm.
right? It happens every day. And currently, those texts go into the abyss. They go into the ether. So the next step, the next logical step, and again, Garvin proved it, and the crowd validated it, is to capture those text messages and do something with them. And, Drips and Invoca are aligning very heavily to help with that. Drips is not looking to get into the inbound business, and Invoca is not looking to get into the outbound business. So, just as a 3-day blinds example, those messages can come in, get pushed to Drips. Drips can hold a conversation with that user, schedule an appointment, get them back on the phone, and then turn them right back to that original Invoca tracking number, and all the attribution to everybody in the funnel gets distributed appropriately. So that's a really exciting thing that we're already talking to 3-day blinds about testing. But I think that's the next step, right? Is you can't have calls without text, and you can't have text without calls. Looking at them separately is a mistake. We made the mistake early on years ago. We only did text, and then when we layered in calls, I call it kind of the 1-2 punch, right? Like a call that doesn't get answered, followed up by a text, is much more impactful than just a text, or a text that is followed up by a call. Hey, I'm going to call you in 10 minutes, and then you actually do the call, is much more impactful than only the text. It's the way we communicate with our friends and family, right? If I call my mom and she doesn't answer, what do?
Yeah.
Hang up and I text her. If I need to call her, oftentimes I'll text her first, because otherwise she might not pick up my phone call, right?
Agreed.
So I think it's a combination of the two that we're going to see more and more of throughout the industry.
Agreed. No, anything that pulls all the touch points together, it's wonderful that they're doing that now. And I love the idea that they did with the Shark Tank Summit where they brought people up and people could vote on them. And I don't think it took any Russian stuffing of the ballots to see that the texting would win, because I thought that was a great idea to start tracking those. So, AC, what is your favorite kind of shark and why?
Ooh, like a real shark?
Yeah.
Or
any kind of shark you want it to be. Stuffed animal, Shark Tank.
Well, I lived in Belize for years, so I got very fond of nurse sharks, which I'm sure you're aware you can swim with down there. I remember one time there was a nurse shark. Yeah, they're huge catfish, exactly. I remember once, I have two shark stories for you. I'll make them quick. Once I was snorkeling at Mexico Rocks, and this is in Belize, right beside Mexico, and I saw a 6 or 7 foot nurse shark that had got turned upside down because he was probably trying to catch a fish or whatever, and he was underneath the coral, and he wasn't moving. And you may know this, but sharks, once they get turned upside down like that, they go into some sort of sleep state, right?
Right.
So he could have potentially laid there and died eventually. But I went down, yanked him out. My friends were freaking out because they didn't know it was a nurse shark. They thought it was a predatorial shark. But that was cool. Got to see him snap to and swim away. And then the antithesis of that story, which is also funny, I was at what do they call it? Shark Ray Alley, where all the stingrays and the sharks come up in Belize, and you can feed them and whatnot. And all the boat captains are saying they don't bite, don't worry. And my wife is in the boat, and she's saying, I'm not getting in there. Those things, sharks are gonna bite you. So anyway, I'm in the water, and the boat captains are chumming the water with pieces of fish and whatnot, and they were throwing the fish, and a piece of fish landed on my arm, and one of these big ass nurse sharks bit me. It bit me right on the arm. Yeah. And I looked down, I felt this thing biting me, and I looked down, I'm bleeding out of my elbow. I'm like, oh my God, it bit me. And I'm in the middle of 20, 30 of these giant sharks. So I get out of the water as quickly as you can imagine, and there's blood running down my arm, and I'm freaking out, and I wiped the blood off, and the wound was gone. Yeah. Like the way their teeth are so tiny. Yeah. It's like a metal. It's almost like those metal toothbrush looking things that you clean motors with. So it's just a funny story. I'm freaking. I'm like, it bit me. I'm like getting woozy, and then I just wiped the blood off. And
kind of a Vince Vaughn couples retreat moment.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, love sharks. I think they're beautiful animals, and love swimming with them in Belize. They're majestic.
Yeah, I've rubbed the belly of a shark or two turned upside down in that sleep state. So
yeah,
not a nurse shark. So anyway, are you ready for the 5 most interesting, important questions you're going to be asked today?
Ooh, sure. Let's do it.
Conference in Santa Barbara or a conference in New York?
Ooh. Well, I would say if it's a short conference, I'd rather it be in New York because I can fly in and out the same day and get back home to the girls. If it's a long conference like Summit was, I'd rather be Santa Barbara.
Agreed. All right, number 2. So especially consider this where we just spent a few days. Number 2 is vegan or vegetarian?
If I had to go one way or the other, it'd probably be vegetarian. I don't think I could live all the way vegan.
No.
I did have a vegan meal, though, while I was out in Santa Barbara. It was fantastic. It had sausage in it somehow. I don't know what it was made of.
Like I always say, wrap my hummus in bacon. I can't do either. So, number 3, lemonade. Again, another California question. Lemonade or lemon-infused water?
Lemon-infused water.
Okay. Number 4, modeled attribution or last click attribution?
Ooh, modeled.
Number 5, and the most important question you're asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread. I'm from the South.
All right. AC, will you be at next year's Invoca Summit?
Of course. Hey, we're the platinum sponsor this year. We'll likely be at next year as long as they don't Google doesn't outbid us.
Yeah. Well,
which they may.
Thank you for sponsoring all my breakfast and lunch.
You're welcome.
So
it was our pleasure. Our team had a great time, and like I said, the Invocans they're such thoughtful people. It's very inspiring to me as a company of about 60 now to see a company of 230 or whatever they are really keep a culture that I know they established very early on. It's something I worry a lot about as we continue to grow, is how to keep that culture. So it's refreshing to get to see them and their people and see that culture grow and really flourish.
AC, thank you again for being with us again on A Shark's Perspective.
Thanks. Talk soon. Bye.
Let's turn to Todd Stearn, the CEO of Aragon Advertising. So, Todd, what did you think about the Invoca Summit this year? I've seen you at several of them, but from a call intelligence standpoint, what did you get out of this year's show?
I thought it was great. I feel like the industry is all moving in the same direction when it comes to the performance side of the business. Everybody's talking about the future of providing higher quality, lower dropped calls, and better performance for clients. And that makes it more exciting for new businesses to come into the call space. And with Invoca's vast clientele across the spectrum of different industries, the more that we could do on the performance side to make it easier and higher quality and more transparent for them to open up to the affiliate channel and to search marketing agencies specializing in pay-per-call, the better that it is for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And how does your agency help support that in a performance standpoint?
Our agency handles internal search marketing for brands, and we also have a very well-established and reputable affiliate network that consists of search marketers as well as independent publishers, affiliate media buyers, and a lot of transfer publishers. And what we try to do is provide our buyer base with the kind of transparency into the sourcing that is now really a requirement of operating in the performance space. We don't want to work with a client if we're not able to give them visibility into what they can expect from their program if it's being launched within our services.
Yeah, agreed. So what did you think of the Damon John speech?
That was one of the best keynote speakers I've ever been to.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, a close second was when I saw Malcolm Gladwell a couple years ago, but Damon John's speech from start to finish had me so enthralled. I think I actually remember everything he said, which is pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, I think what was really amazing about hearing him is he took what is probably a fairly normal speech that's 80 to 90% him and his life and all the things he has to teach, and then he drops in about 10 to 20%, which makes perfect sense to whatever conference he's in. And he's just got that down pat, and I was just so inspired when I walked out, especially after seeing a lot of other keynote speakers, which are really good speakers, but this one just sort of it just sort of motivated you a little bit more than just goes and helps you employ some type of call intelligence tactic that comes from a biz dev or sales guy that doesn't get you that excited. I was very impressed with his work.
I couldn't agree more. I think Damon's story from start to finish is so unique and really exhibits his own successes in a way that anybody can learn from. The shark points are actually, I feel like I've already ingrained them, and I'm trying to keep them, top of mind. And I will be recapping it to my team when I get back to New York, because for me, that was just such a valuable way to consider how to approach problems and find professional growth.
Well, and it bothered me because my nickname Shark in my book, when it comes out, was going to have shark points, but he's pretty much destroyed those for me because he did such an awesome job with it. But I wanted to ask as well, you attend a lot of different conferences. I know we just ran into each other at a different event in Boston, but what do you get out of a conference for a SaaS platform like Invoca as opposed to a different performance marketing event or any other kind of marketing or advertising conference that you go to? What's the value out of this kind of event that you wouldn't find necessarily in others?
I think one thing that's very valuable at an event such as Invoca's Call Intelligence Summit is the seminar base. It's not focused around networking and exhibiting and meeting as many folks as possible from all walks of the business, which is valuable. But Invoca structures a conference that's particularly focused on professional development, understanding their product more, which helps everybody reinvest in their business and grow. So everything's very high level as well at the Invoca Summit. So I'm having conversations with a lot of very experienced folks at, VP status and above across the spectrum of different companies, and a lot of really, in Invoca's case, so a lot of their customers are fantastic companies, Fortune 500 companies that are using their platform, and only maybe just for the first time realizing what they can do with third-party marketing solutions, such as what Aragon brings to the table. So just having those conversations with some of those folks was really valuable. And actually, I spoke with one gentleman from a company that he joined on recently to help them with their digital transformation. And this is a major company in the world selling equipment to individuals to install in their home to improve the way that their HVAC systems operate. And this gentleman had amazing ideas on how he was going to incorporate Invoca to provide better attribution for his marketing team so that they can, in turn, get better insight into how many sales were being delivered. Their biggest blind spot was that they had individual contractors all across the country who they're providing free leads to from their site, which is, from my world, is unheard of. But I get it here because they're getting these free leads, and then they're hopefully selling products to consumers from this company. And their problem is getting that attribution and not being able to see full circle from each of these contractors. Where do the sales come from? How do we know from the marketing spend that we have put into this campaign on Google and other channels with all these disparate contractors, are they actually selling our products when we're giving them free leads? And with Invoca, he was able to figure out how to put that together. And to me, that just, that's so incredible because now he can improve the targeting, improve the value of the customers that they're targeting, and increase the sale rate, and ultimately increase the bottom line for his company, which they can reinvest to be more competitive.
Agreed. So where would you like to see the space go next, not just for Invoca, but for any kind of call intelligence partner?
I think the call marketing space and the technology advancements that are taking place across the spectrum are really exciting. If you look at the call generation and distribution side of things, you have the advancement of ping post and call distribution technologies that happen in real time. I think a couple of really interesting companies, as well as ours, are looking into ways to properly incorporate real-time bidding into phone calls. That really excites me. And then I think what Invoca has done from their product development standpoint around signals and artificial intelligence is also incredibly exciting from the standpoint of how do you get through these millions of minutes of calls that you would otherwise have to listen to determine how viable they were and make optimizations to your marketing. And then Invoca comes out with a product like Signals that does that pretty much on an automated basis. So those two advancements, I think, are going to set up the next year of the call marketing space and really lead to a lot of improvements in performance and a lot of advancements in terms of what kind of clients are actually coming into this space.
What is your favorite kind of shark and why?
My favorite shark was Damon John before I saw him, and it just made it that much more clear that was the right decision after seeing him.
Yep.
I didn't know his story before I saw him, but I've always appreciated his ability on the show to focus on what he knows and not waste people's time. And then when he knows something and people come on the show just for him, and there's always like a really good match there. So I really appreciated Damon from that standpoint, and hearing his story just made it all the better.
So Todd, are you ready for the 5 most interesting, important questions that you're going to be asked today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Number 1, a conference in Santa Barbara or a conference in New York?
Santa Barbara.
Agreed. Number 2, very California term, vegan or vegetarian?
Neither.
Thank
Meat
you.
all the way.
Thank you. Number 3, lemonade or lemon-infused water?
I don't know what lemon-infused water is, so lemonade.
No. Number 4, modeled attribution or last-click attribution?
Last-click attribution, I'll hold on to for now until I see good multi-touch attribution models released into the market.
All right, number 5, and the most important question you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread.
All right, good man. Todd, thank you very much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kenneth.
Last but not least, let's hear from David Walsh, president of Visiqua. David, welcome back to A Shark's Perspective. What did you think about the Invoca Summit this year?
I'm a big fan of the summit. I think it's, I've been a couple of times before and spoken before, and I love the cadence. I love the organization. The addition of a few breaks between things this year was nice, so we weren't as on top of each other. But overall for me, it's one of the few trade shows, if you want to call it that, on my calendar that I actually make an attempt to go to. The other ones I sort of wind up at as is convenient or as is a major client wants to meet at one. Whereas, in Invoca, I'm going to go regardless.
Well, it does help when you are considered, 2018, you were the agency of the year?
Yes, Strategic Call Partner of the Year
for
Invoca in 2018. And it helps their case that they're sitting on the beach and the weather's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. It does. It was, when you can go anywhere in October and it's 85 and 50 feet from an ocean, that's pretty much on my bucket list for any conference I go to. So have you been to other call intelligence industry related conferences?
Not specifically call intelligence, but I've been to a number of the conferences where our vendors have pulled together either their client base or attempted to do something similar to Invoca. The Jornaya Lead Intelligence Summit comes to mind that they did, and I've been to a few others as well.
So one of the things that I like about theirs, although they do have some salespeople and biz dev people do some of the presentations, there's a pretty good break from, you're not getting sales pitched all the time. And that's one thing I really appreciate is just hearing from actual, customers. I know my own company, we brought one of our own data architects, and he is the least thing from being a salesperson or biz dev person. So I think you do get a pretty good mix of people who are telling a thoughtful conversation around call intelligence and compliance and data analytics, and not just Invoca sales pitch stuff. I'm curious, do you see that same thing as well?
I do see that same thing, and I think it's because they do a lot of prep work and they do a lot of work with their speakers ahead of time. I think back to another event that I spoke at in Miami a couple weeks ago, and it was just sort of free reign, like show up, give us your PowerPoint, and it was meant to be educational, but it turned much more into stand up and pitch a room full of relevant people. And I do think it's because of the effort that. Oh, yeah, especially when it's not relevant to you.
Exactly. Well, so your company, Visiqua, drives a lot of pay-per-call traffic. What value do you see in call intelligence software that helps your business move ahead?
Well, one major use case for us is, we have a lot of clients that are very happy to get a large volume of calls and may just look at something like call duration and assume that everything is going very well. And, it could be anything from those are existing customers that are looking for help.
It's like how long they stood on hold on customer service.
Yeah, I assume I'm not the only human who gets mad with customer service call times and calls the sales line.
Yeah.
Reminding me I actually need to do that to somebody this afternoon. So that that's a really clear use case for us. And then in the event for us from a technology standpoint, where we're routing all these different calls to different people, and if we can intersect it and track it and get intelligence about it in real time from Invoca and display that ourselves, rather than have to go back to 50 advertisers and try to figure out, okay, are these calls from this specific media not performing for you because they don't perform at all, or are they not performing for you because the type of media does not match your buyer persona? And I'll use the oversimplification I always use in the auto insurance space, but if I'm targeting users that would be most logical to sell to the general, and I'm selling them to a high-end expensive insurance company like a Plymouth Rock or Liberty Mutual, that's a mismatch. And I can get the intelligence from that from Invoca, which I can't really get scale from the end clients.
Agreed. So we covered a lot about call intelligence there. Where would you like to see this space? Whether it was Invoca or any other provider out there, what's the thing that you would like to see next that would really, in your opinion, help move this space even further forward?
At this point, I think it's investing in technologies, right? There's several people out there, and you get into the buy or the build argument. Do you facilitate it with open APIs, the way that, an open source code, the way that they did early on in the internet? Do you build a walled garden environment like Facebook does? But, I think solving for that, like, how are we going to knit these technologies together? How are we going to advance these technologies and build on the foundation that we already have? It's almost like we're in a gap period between 1.0 and 2.0 in the call space, and we need to accelerate those developments on top of the foundation we've already built in order to figure out what we can do next.
Agreed. So, we were at a call intelligence software, and their keynote speaker that drew everybody in talks about FUBU, hip hop music, and LL Cool J, Run DMC. Not the things you normally would think about at a call intelligence software summit in Santa Barbara, California. But what did you think of the keynote in Damon John this year?
I mean, I think across the board, he was really well received. Fascinating story, really driven, charismatic individual. And I think somebody like that has a place at these shows.
Absolutely.
You just don't want to nerd out on tech
24/7.
You want to learn and go through it. And I think, there's a great example of thinking of somebody like that who could come in and offer good perspective. I've seen another similar one, actually, ironically, also in the sports equipment space, but senior VP from Nike I watched speak, and all he spoke about was how they're going to digitally transform their business. Nothing else. Those types of things, I think, add just a ton of value to the conference for the everyday conference goer.
Yeah, as much knowledge as we can get out of listening from anybody. Sometimes you just want to be inspired to take whatever knowledge you have to the next level. And he made his speech so relatable. And I was telling somebody else, I mean, he does a ton of shows at a ton of different events, Damon does. And I think he drops in about 10%-ish around wherever he is, and the rest of it could be anywhere, and he still makes it feel like it's tailor-made just for you. And I think his presentation style is brilliant. And he's not somebody that's jumping around all over the stage. He just does this brilliant blend of music and culture and stuff he does on Shark Tank, and it doesn't hurt him at all to have best-selling books and a top hit TV show with a couple of gazillionaires on there as well. So I was pretty inspired myself to come out of it. So you were part of a panel discussion, maximizing payouts through advanced call routing. What was the gist of that conversation? And you were on there also with Todd. What did you really cover out of that session, and what are you sort of seeing?
Sure. Well, I think one thing for me that came out of that session selfishly was it validated a lot of things that Visiqua is thinking about and that we're trying to do, and it gave me a little bit of a chance to benchmark against Todd and Mike from Apollo about where their companies are and doing some of the same things. So that, I think, was great for me and probably not as beneficial for the rest of the room. But, it all tied back to continuing to evolve the way that calls are moving forward, their technical progression along a similar line to the way that data progressed previously, and going from simple one-to-one matches. That session was termed maximizing payouts by advanced call routing, but it should really have been, I think, maximizing value by advanced call routing. And the reason I say that is, if you really get advanced call routing right, as a publisher, you are now taking the right user, you're selling them to the right advertiser. That advertiser is converting them at a higher rate because it's the correct buyer profile, and the customer is enjoying a better customer experience. So all along the line, from publisher compensation to advertiser LTV to consumer experience, by routing a call to the correct place using third-party data and internal data, you build more value and experience in that call.
You know, I've worked in MarTech and AdTech a pretty good chunk of my career, and I think this is one of the better displays of where the technology is actually improving customer experience. So often we hear that doing something is going to add to the customer experience, and then some email platform, if that's the pitch, then you get, you still get spammed 1,000 times. They've just made it easier on the marketing department instead of the customer. But this is one of those ones, and that's a perfect example of where the call gets routed to the right place, would save me hours of frustration as opposed to, wondering, is anybody even know I'm on hold? And that's a brilliant point, so that they can leverage the technology to improve on the experience. So, David, you've been asked this before on a previous episode, but I ask you again, see if your answer has changed. What is your favorite kind of shark and why?
Tiger shark.
That's a good one. I've got a fairly new, it's not new, but it's a tiger shark tattoo on my arm, so it's one of my favorites as well. But are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today?
Oh, yes, I remember this from last time. Let's
right.
go.
These are a little bit different than last time, though. So, number 1, a conference in Santa Barbara or a conference in New York?
Santa Barbara.
Yeah, this is hands down pretty much winning. So, number 2, vegan or vegetarian?
Vegetarian.
If we spent that much time in California, you'd have to think about it as, it's kind of like being stuck on an island. Number 3.
You should try Colorado.
Yeah, exactly. Number 3, another California type question that I saw in a jug. Lemonade or lemon infused water?
Lemon water.
All right. Number 4, modeled attribution or last click attribution?
I would prefer modeled, but I live in the world of last click.
Okay. Number 5, and the most important question you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Biscuits.
David, are you going to be at Invoca Summit next year?
I will be there.
All right. Well, I
if
appreciate
they'll have me.
If they'll have you. Well, David, thank you again so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So there was my conversation with Gregg Johnson, CEO of Invoca, Joel Citron, Vice President of Advertising Technologies at AI Media Group, AC Evans, CEO of Drips, Todd Stearn, CEO of Aragon Advertising, and David Walsh, President of Visiqua. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversations with them. First, Damon John gives an amazing keynote speech. If you ever have a chance to hear him speak, then go. I don't care if it's a summit at Invoca or the Garbage Truck Association of Timbuktu. He personalizes the speech brilliantly to whatever the audience, and then weaves a great story full of laughs, pop culture, music history, family, health, humility, failure and getting back up, entrepreneurism, my personal favorite, swimming with sharks, and a lot more. And it's the kind of speech that will inspire you, whatever you're doing, to go do more. Second, if you're not using a call intelligence platform today, then please reach out to me and I'll do my best to try to give you some guidance. Without AI-powered or machine learning, call tracking and analytics, then you are missing out on something that will increase campaign performance. Understand that not everyone wants to use a form, not everyone wants to text. A large portion of the population needs to solve complex problems via the phone with someone at a brand, and you need to invest, if you haven't already, in the right technology that will show attribution on those calls. Leverage that technology to make your advertising perform better, help your customer service team, if not also your sales team, and quite simply improve the customer experience. And not all marketing technologies do this. So when you need to invest in MarTech, make certain that there is real focus on improving your customer experience. Technologies like Invoca's are just one example of how that works well and also improves performance of your advertising spend. Third, find a technology or service from a vendor or partner that you work with currently and try to attend one of their conferences if they have one. Sometimes you find one with the right content, in the right location, with the right team, and sometimes you'll find a lot more from working more closely with the right partner. When you know they're the right partner, then it's amazing what you can come away with and achieve from the right kind of conference. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you for the privilege of your time. I'm giving advice to think like a shark, but make sure to be your own shark. There are plenty of species of us, so it's okay. Just be prepared for the bite. And join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.